this is a giant size Fantastic Four #1. See that? With a great cover by Matt HAWE'S. Matt HAWE'S, who great guy. He runs a comic shop. He was on YouTube many years ago. We did videos together, and he's still around, and he's also an excellent artist and writer. Now, you have to excuse me, I have allergies, and sometimes this happens. But a giant-sized Fantastic Four #1, this is not an official Marvel comic. In fact, it's never happened. It's never existed as far as Marvel comics. Or if you go to Overstreet and try to look it up, or what, it doesn't exist. Fantastic Four annuals were around, probably Fantastic Four specials, but this particular issue never happened. So how could this be if I'm standing here holding it? I'm going to need some water, folks. The water's way over there. Hang on a second. Now, this is the problem when you try to do a wordy video and your throat is incredibly dry. I could take some Mucinex or something for that. What do you think? Anyway, it never happened. So what you're seeing doesn't exist. But it does exist because Matt HAWE'S published this. The thing is, it seems, and I got a message from Matt HAWE'S quite a while ago, and printed it out so I can see what it says. Basically, John Byrne, 15 years ago, he said 15, but it's probably been 2 years since he sent me this message. Excuse me. 15 years ago, several of us aspiring artists decided to finish a story that John Byrne did as a fan to try out for a Marvel assignment. So John Byrne was doing artwork, submitting this to Marvel, I guess trying to get on board. This is when John Byrne was trying to get on board with Marvel. And so either that or he was already on board, but he had this idea for this comic, and it was never completed. It ended up just being a fan thing. And John Byrne allowed a bunch of other folks, a bunch of other talented people, small press people, to complete the story, to complete the artwork. And here we see it in the back. Okay, there's two versions of this. In the back, we see the original John Byrne art, inks by different people. And that looks like a totally great Marvel comic book, right? Inked by different people. And but the thing was, years later, Matt decided to reprint this thing. Like I say, it was a fan project, but apparently Matt was allowed to, was given permission to do with it whatever he wanted. But the original artwork is here, but it's rather tiny, and the resolution was low. So Matt's been sitting on this for a long time, and at one point he decided, you see the high evolutionary there, right? So, it's an exciting cosmic FF, epic. Matt decided at one point to re-ink the comic. Now, the writer for this, it was written by Mike O'Brien with revisions by Matt HAWE'S. And like I said, there was a lot of different inkers originally. These different inkers did pages 2 pages or 3 pages, including Matt. Matt was one of the original inkers, but it all held together. It was very cohesive, and it looked great. But after all these years, Matt decided he wanted an even more cohesive version of this. So he took the original artwork by John Byrne, and he decided he was going to ink the entire issue by himself. As I said, he did script revisions, and he inked it and colored it, and it looks great. Right? So here we see there's a satellite. Nope, that's the Fantastic Four. They're off in outer space. You can tell by the big 4 logo. There was 4 of them. That's why they're called the Fantastic Four. But um, so they're going out there, and it looks like Ben Grimm, the Thing, is he's going to do a spacewalk, right? So he does, because there's this, like I say, there's this weird capsule floating out there in space, and he gets into it, and he finds this, which is Crystal of the Inhumans. Now, Crystal was Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. It was his ex girlfriend, and so he uh, was stunned to find her because he had just talked to her on Earth this very morning, and now he finds her in outer space. She's out there in outer space. Ben goes out there. He frees her from the capsule he's in, and an explosion occurs because where's that explosion? Well, it's somewhere over here. Yeah, there you see it. You see it over on this page. Explosion sends Ben hurtling backwards. And I got to say something about Ben's dialogue. Let's see what he says because hold on, girlie, I'll get you out of this thing in no time. He says, "This is crazy." He comes back to the FF's, their ship, and he says, "This is crazy." Stretch talking to Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards. What was what was Crystal doing in that space capsule? Now I don't know. I remember. You know that Stan Lee and the other writers they played around with Ben Grimm's uh, dialogue, and so he's asking Reed Richards, "Is this really her?" And he says, "So if this here ain't the real McCoy, what is she? What is she?" Uh, so apparently Ben Grimm talks like that. I don't know. You can say what you want about the dialogue. I don't know if they still have him talking like this and that and this and that. But I don't know. It's just something I observed, and they probably did. They probably did. Maybe by that time I'd quit reading Fantastic Four. Of course, if John Byrne was doing some of the artwork, I certainly would have been reading it. And well, what happens once she's freed? Um, they had her on board. All of a sudden, she flames up just like Johnny Storm. She flames up, and you see Matt Hall's inks over here. Really nice stuff. She flames up, throwing everybody for a loop, including the Human Torch, Johnny, and there she is. It's like Dark Phoenix all over again, but it's she's another type of Human Torch. She's got all this power, and she ends up challenging Johnny Storm, and she recognizes him as her lover. But the fact is, this particular version of Crystal wasn't really his lover. Let me bring this mic a little bit closer here. Is that okay? And it turns out, as you'll find out reading this story, that she's from, you guessed it, an alternate Earth. And this Earth is on the other side of our solar system. Um, you know, exactly on the other side. So if you went from here to there, it's the exact spot it would be on this side, but on the other side, and thus, things revolve around the sun, and we never get to see this version. Um, but anyway, um, Johnny says, "Return with me to the Baxter building. You are a danger to yourself, and only Reed can help you." And she's like, "You lie." And she gives it to the Human Torch. Wappo, woom. Some exciting action artwork there. So, and they go on. Um, yep. And Johnny they're flying the Fantastic car. There's the Thing, Ben Grimm, and you know, he wants to capture her and do whatever they have to do. And Johnny's saying, "I hear you, Ben. Just remember to take it easy on her. She's not in her right mind." By this point, he hasn't realized that she's an alternate Earth Crystal, but she recognizes him and expresses her love for him. But the very fact that he's battling against her kind of messes up that whole renewed love relationship. Apparently, but on this other Earth, Crystal and Johnny had never broken up. Um, there's other interesting stuff here because of the time period when it occurred, and we do get to the high evolutionary and evolution on another planet, on the far side of the sun, and all of this stuff, and the story about how she was placed into orbit because she was too dangerous. And here we got her sister from the Inhumans, Crystal, and this was Medusa. Medusa was her sister. At this time, Susan Storm was not in the Fantastic Four. The Invisible Girl, the Invisible Woman was not there, so she was replaced at this time. It gives you an idea what time period this was. It was the early 70s, where Medusa replaced the Invisible Woman for a little while. And so she started, this is her sister. But the thing is, same with Johnny, she had just talked to her sister on this planet, but now here she's seeing her here, and she's from another world, and it's like, like, what the heck? And so this goes on and on till we get to the fiery conclusion. We have the story about Crystal's father on the other planet. That was her father, and how he tried to take care of her and make sure everything was going to turn out right, but it didn't turn out right, and he's pretty darn upset about it, as you can imagine. So in the end, and it's not a big deal. I'm giving away the ending because the ending. This is not a dramatic part of the ending. This is like an aftermath, where Johnny is walking sadly away because he realizes not only has he lost his love of his life, Crystal. He lost her before, but now he has lost her again, as Reed Richards places her back in orbit and back into suspended animation. So you have this new artwork looking absolutely splendid. And then you have the original artwork. And who did the original cover? Original cover art by James Pippick. So that would be the original cover right here by James Pippick for the original fan, the tryout publication. That I don't think. I guess it was never really published until now. And here's the new cover by Matt Halls and inked by who? It looks like Matt. It might just be Matt by himself. I think it is Matt Hall. It is him, and this is in 2021. Beautiful cover. On the back, he tells the story about how this all came to be, this imaginary, giant-sized Fantastic Four #1, a classic comic, truly a classic comic in every sense of the word, except that it was never published in the mainstream. But you can probably get this from Matt Halls. You'll enjoy the heck out of it. It says 35 cents on the cover, but I wouldn't count on that. I think Matt, I'll try to place Matt's ordering info down below. So Matt will be surprised to see this review after all this time. But and hopefully his information is up to date. But contact Matt, and he'll tell you how to get
at the space convention. Just a couple of months ago, I did pick up a couple of copies of Cornelia cartoons from Kel Crum. And here they are. And this is a two-part story. Cornelia cartoons, number 11 and number 12. And there's Cornelia, our heroine, on the front. There she is. Yep. So, Kel is nothing if not a unique humorist, one heck of a funny guy. Okay, you can get right into it. It starts a pill battle. This is a pill battle, part 1 and part 2. I like the way he introduces the tale. He says, because the story. You know what? Everything's backwards to me. I don't know if you're reading this backwards or not, but when I'm looking at this, it's backwards. So let me see what it says this way. Because this story requires it, our heroine, Cornelia Dobson, has a night job as cleaning lady at Dweebco Labs. So there she is in the laboratory, dripping chemicals and bubbling and that sort of thing, and a sterno underneath the bubbling, flask. And this guy breaks in, and this is Professor Alfred Ziplock. Of course, that's his real name. Don't mistake him for anyone else. I don't think you will, because I don't know. I haven't known any other Ziplocks, so maybe you don't either. But he announces he has a discovery. It's a breakthrough. He has a new drug. A new drug he's been testing called psychiatrics. Psychiatrics. And this drug, with one pill, will make any depressed person, manically depressed or whatever, extremely happy. He tested it on a lab rat named Irwin, and Irwin pops up here, having taken the pill. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime girl. Right? And so he's excited about his discovery, and he wants to share it with the world. Yeah, and he starts to test it on human. He tested it on 1 or 2 humans. Here's a guy. Where are we at? Before, there he is, all grumpy with flies flying around him. Here he is afterwards. And now he's a guy, he's promoting his own Wonder NutriShake. And he has a new book, My Cavities Are Smiling. So it's certainly turned his life around. Meanwhile, you occasionally see this commentary from a crusty conservative dickhead and a snotty liberal. There they are. Right there. Crusty conservative dickhead and snotty liberal. Who, of course, would disagree. Psychiatrics should be covered by the health care plan, says the liberal. And the crusty conservative says not. Are you getting caught up in the story already? I know you are. It gets wilder and wilder as it goes along. So the general public was excited. And this guy says, well, he's concerned. Right here, he says, it won't give me man boobs, will it? Hopefully not. And everyone's been talking about it, including Cornelia and her friend Helen Boomer at their favorite hangout, Fern Sniffer's Family Bar. Helen says, I don't see how this thing is going to be any different from Paxil, or Zoloft or whatever it is there. And Reba comes along. Who's Reba? Well, if you're reading past adventures, you may know that Reba. Who the heck is Reba? I should check back with my past adventures myself, but she's a person who does behavioral studies, and she's a PhD. She thinks she's a really smart person. She's studied tirelessly under the tutelage of great psychological giants, and she's charging $100 an hour for therapy. Okay, so that's Reba, and she has been a sort of a villain in the past, and this issue is, I can tell you right now, not going to be any exception. And Cornelia wanders off, saying, geez, everyone I know is getting therapy. I'm starting to feel the peer pressure. But she wants to be among the cool crowd. So she wants to be just like everybody else. She wants to be liked. So she decides that even though she doesn't have troubles, she does have troubles. And her troubles are, it's kind of a different take on it. She says, that's it. The fact that I'm not too depressed about things means there really is something wrong with me. She should be depressed. She should be, because in her mid-20s, she's still a virgin, no solid career path. She should be depressed. Once she realizes that she should be depressed, even though she isn't, she thinks that's really cool. Now she's part of the in crowd. Well, it goes on and on and on. We got Helen getting drunk being seduced somewhat, seduced with alcohol, to sign a contract with her for therapy at $100 per session. She gives her not Jaeger or Jägermeister, it's a Jaeger mistress. She's so drunk that she signs the contract, and but once she realizes what she's done, she goes demanding recompense. She wants her money back. She wants out of the contract. And you can be sure Reba's not going to go along with it. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I could be going through this thing one page by page, but I can only make this video so darn long. So everybody's thinking about psychiatrists. Here's a guy taking this medicine. I lost my job. My wife left me. I've been evicted from my home. I haven't eaten in 2 days. My dog has herpes. But I am so happy. Of course you would be. Your own psychiatrist. So, but the doctor who created this, is becoming, I'll tell you something funny too, because you got the crusty conservative dickhead and the snotty liberal. They both begin taking the medicine, and They suddenly their partisan feuding is over. Where is it? Right here. It says, "At last we agree on health care and we're getting married. Yay!" But the doctor's having second thoughts. He's not sure what he's done. He's controlling people's lives, and he says, "With great inventions comes great responsibility. Therapy and pharmaceuticals were once a great match, like a happy married couple. But my new discovery could prove a problem." And we have pharmaceuticals and therapy sitting at the same table, and then having a falling out. So he's worried that something's going to go wrong, and he gives over he only has one copy of the recipe for this. And he gives it to Cornelia and asks her to put it in a safe for him. So she puts it in a safe, but something happens. Somebody shows up at the end. There's a hand with a gun. The hand is all in black, and telling her she has to hand it over. So it doesn't make it into the safe. And that was the end of Cornelia Cartoons number 11. A most unique publication, but it's not totally unique because there's another one, and that is number 12. So from Kilcrom, and you love his artwork. You gotta love his artwork. It's a unique style. It's a style all his own. He's always very funny. I mean, you know, the words are funny, the situations are funny, but the artwork is funny as well. And so Cal always does a great job. Here he is. Here we go at a continuation. Cornelia is being approached by a guy dressed all in black, like a black cloak with black shoes, black everything. All I can see is the eyeballs, and she like right away hands over the formula. Here's the formula, you know. So right, and so she gets tied up, and you know, and the doctor comes into the room, and he gets tied up too, because when the you know, Cornelia is a friendly person. So when the guy in black, you know, who happens to be stealing the formula, he says, "Yes, do you have any rope? I forgot to bring some." She says, "Oh yeah, there's some in the closet right there." So she gives away the whole thing, and then she's like kind of regretting it. Oh, now that I think of it, I could have lied about the rope, because now she's tied up, the professor's tied up, and but the doctor recognizes the voice of this person, some guy named Fred. So he whips off the cloak, and there he is, this guy named Fred. Fred is is that you, Fred? Damn you all. Madam, I am Fred Sigmund, president of the American Therapists Union, Local 402. And I'm not about you to let you send us all to the employment line. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he has his reasons for opposing the doctor. But while he's discussing this and talking about destroying the formula, he wants to destroy the formula. He's not trying to make money off it. He thinks it's a bad thing. But all of a sudden, someone else appears who looks exactly like him with the cloak on. And right away the cloak is taken off. And this turns out to be this Phantom 2 turns out to be Pablo Espresso Bar, United Drug Dealers, Local 404. He says psychiatrics must be stopped. It will take away people's incentive to solve their problems with weed, coke, and crack. Of course, that's what they do, unfortunately. But anyway, this person wants to destroy the formula, and you'd think these two guys would be working together because they both want to destroy the formula. But someone else appears in the black cloak in the room, with a clown mask on, and this is this is Virgil Maize Breath, Monsanto, Food Growers Union, Local 248. He says, I don't want to kill your formula. He wants to use the formula as a food additive. Well, they're all trying to... and so the three cloak guys get in a big argument. I mean, this is all normal stuff, right? This would happen in real life. Of course, in Cornelia's world, nothing is normal. I wonder if I can move this camera up a little bit here. Get the top of my head. That's the top of my head, folks. Did you miss it? You haven't seen it, right? Well, there it is. And well, what happens is all three of these guys, the three bad guys, all end up taking the medicine, the drug. They all check it out, and guess what? It makes them all happy, and they want to work together. Let's join forces and put this positive energy to work. We'll make the world a better place. Together we can do it. But they start having side effects right away. Well, one of the guys barfs. Sorry to have to show you this. One guy barfs. Another guy is about to faint. One guy, his hair is falling out. Dizziness, hair loss, hearing loss, leprosy, ringing. These are all side effects of the medicine. So they all have to deal with that. And then meanwhile, a little bit later, remember Reba and Helen? They have a big fight. They get into it, and you look at the look at the artwork here. Pretty crazy. Kel Crum at his maniac best right here as the ladies are fighting. Anyway, the story goes on, and it's pretty. It's nuts. Okay. I won't tell you the ending, but it's every bit as wacky as the rest of the story. There's also a story about Snappy and Wappy. By, you guessed it, Kel Crum, Snappy and Wappy. There they are, Snappy and Wappy. And one guy says, hey, Wappy, why did the chicken cross the road? He says, I don't know, Snappy. Why did the chicken cross the road? And Snappy says he got to look at the gas prices and figure he didn't have to worry about cars. Well, something happens. So Wappy falls over. The joke is pretty funny. So he falls over, and all you can see is sticking up is his feet. And that's all you see for the rest of the strip is his feet. Because, once again, nothing is normal in a Kel Crum strip. So, and he goes to a doctor. The doctor says he needs a psychiatrist. But really, apparently, there's no help for the guy, and he just kind of stays that way for the rest of the strip. And I guess he gets used to it. Anyway, this is Kel Crum The Madness, that is a Kelcrum, a comic. 2 issues here. They're $2 each. I'll put the ordering info, will I put it down below? If I can. This is a Patreon video. You can always email Kel and get the information. And so that's what's going on with that. I did also want to mention very quickly, I get some people will send me not actual printed zines. They send me PDFs of their zines. Jim Main is one such person, old pal from way back. For 50 years we've been friends. We've both been chairman of the UFO, the BPP. We've done a lot of stuff together. I did work for Pazit. He did work for and Mantra, and we've just known each other for a long time. So we're a couple of old geezers, and we're still hanging in there and still knocking out comics. Jim Main has a new comic. Like I say, he sent me a PDF of it. Now, I could have put screenshots up here or whatever. It's called Sci-Fi Shall Not Die. This is volume 2, number 1, fall 2023 issue. Here's what it looks like, except that this is, I printed this out on my home copier. The actual zine will be on much nicer paper. I'm sure be much nicer stock, and also I just did this for me, just so it would be easier for me to show it off. I printed it one side. Obviously, it's printed on 2 sides. It's going to be a quality publication because anything from Jim Main is always a quality publication. That is the Emer from what's it called, 5 Million Miles to Earth. On the cover, the great Ray Harryhausen classic film, and he has a lot of of great science fiction artwork from a lot of talented people. Page 3, it says here, has Brad Foster, so let's check that out. And here it is, page 3, a depiction of the Mechanical Man, and it says it's an Italian silent film from 1921. A terrific Brad Foster artwork. Other people who contributed to the issue. Let me just find out any random picture. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Something that strikes me. There's a lot that strikes me. There's Verl Holt Bond, artwork from Verl Holt Bond. Right? Verl's always, he's one of our favorite artists, one of my favorite artists. There's a realism to his artwork that makes it stand out. It's kind of stark and it's kind of realistic. And what was that movie? Number 8. Well, it just says Verl Bond. I know I've seen that movie. I can't always remember, but here we go. Jack Bertram, Queen of Outer Space. Jack Bertram, great artist, great small press comic book artist from way back. Always great to see something new from Jack, and on and on and on. So there's so much stuff in here, so much really nice work. I'm just looking at different pictures here. It's hard to figure out which one to comment. Let's say this is page 17. This looks kind of cool. Let's see who drew that. Page 17, Alan Groening. Oh yeah. There we go. Alan Groening. Kurt Russell there, and this is the future of the world, folks. You've seen it in the films. Here it is in Alan Groening's illustration. Looks really nice illustration too. What else? On and on and on. I'm just skipping through. There's so much good stuff here from so many different people. Here's something from our old friend Mike Tuz, friend of Jim's and mine's, and friend of the UFO ever since the 1970s. Mike Tuz, he's a great writer. He's an excellent artist. We don't see nearly enough from him in print these days, but it's nice to see this picture of the amazing colossal man from Mike. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff here. John Lambert. Here's a superb artist. I love his inking style and that sort of stippling effects that he uses. and very expressive. But this book is, oh goodness, who did this one? This is gorgeous. This is, what is that, the back cover? Who did the back cover? Let's find out. J. Moores. J. Moores. Check this out. That isn't gorgeous. I can imagine what this looks like on the quality stock and the actual zine that Jim is offering for sale here. It's $4.50 from Jim Main. Like I say, there's a lot of quality stuff in here. It's some 29-30 pages long and well worth it. So contact Jim Main and check it out. My crude copies, but actually it looks, like I say, much nicer, much slicker. So what about that Flash movie? What do you think? What do you think? Well, I went there with my daughter Kathy. She was here for Father's Day, so it was my Father's Day gift to go see the Flash movie. And I was already, I'd heard some people loved it. I was hearing mixed reviews about it. I can understand the mixed reviews because, for one thing, it's the end of the DCEU. Before of James Gunn's takeover of the DCU, which is the universe that's just about to happen. So this is originally I think supposed to be the end of the DCEU, of that particular universe, that particular narrative leading up to the rebirth that is to come. It was actually leading up to, I think, Crisis on Infinite Earths. And, it brings in the multiverse, a really complicated multiverse that we dealt with decades ago when George Perez illustrated the DC's miniseries, Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the greatest comic book series of all time, featuring virtually every DC comic superhero that ever existed. In any dimension, all the versions of the Flash, all the versions of Green Lantern, of Superman, etc., 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 going way back. This one, in fact, does show Earth's parallel dimensions colliding, Earth's worlds colliding. You even get a glimpse of George Reeves as Superman, which tells you that George Reeves' Superman did exist in this universe, or in a universe that's supported by this particular narrative. He did exist somewhere along the line. You see Christopher Reeve, you see Adam West's Batman, and you see, not every, there's some things were cut out, but you see an awful lot of heroes, of our heroes, in different incarnations, in different multiverses, different worlds within the multiverse. In fact, the movie begins with the Flash and Barry Allen, the Flash, played by the troubled Ezra Miller. I'm not going to say too much about that. He's had his troubles and everything, but he's a heck of an actor because he proves it in this movie because he plays not only himself, but another younger version of himself on a different Earth, in a different time zone. It's not a time zone, but it's a well, it's an alternate dimension, an alternate time. It begins in sort of a comical, like a comic opera in a way. With reminds me a little bit of a what was that Superman movie that began such a zany manner? One of the early Superman movies with Christopher Reeves. In any case, the Flash is trying to capture babies falling from buildings. And it's all pretty crazy. But during this initial episode, some of the other members of the Justice League show up, including Ben Affleck's Batman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. She shows up, and it gets pretty wild and crazy. It starts right off the bat, wild and crazy. So the Flash ends up on this alternate Earth, and this alternate timeline. Timeline is the word I was looking for, not time zone. I'm in a time zone. Lauren Justin's in a time zone that's 1 hour earlier than me, etc., etc. But we're not confused about the timeline. We're just confused about the time zone. So yeah. But he goes back in time, and when he finds out that he has the ability to run so fast that he's running faster than the speed of light, and he realizes that this might mean he can change history. He can go back in time. Even tells Ben Affleck, as Batman, he says, I can go back, I can save my mom. His mother was murdered when he was young. And he says, and I can save your parents. I might even be able to save your parents. And Ben Affleck says, well, maybe you should, or maybe you can. That doesn't mean you necessarily should. And the consequences of Barry Allen's actions, when he does in fact do this, become apparent over a period of time. He does meet an earlier version of himself. He sees his mom and his dad, and his mom survives. He does in fact save her. Like, I'm not trying to tell too much, but I'll try not to. But he does in fact save her from being murdered. But there are consequences for that, because because one thing changes another and another and another and another, and he ends up in a world you can say a world he never made, but he did make, because of the consequences of his actions change everything. There's no superheroes in this world, but there's no Justice League. But and another thing that happens is he ends up, in trying to fix things, he ends up giving the super speed powers of the Flash to his younger self, his younger alternate universe self, and he himself loses his own powers. And he spends a lot of time trying to fix this. And but the thing that, the first, like, I'm watching the first part of the movie, and I'm going, like, for the first half hour, I'm going like, okay, interesting, yeah, interesting. Well, it started out pretty good, yeah. And then I'm thinking, this is 2.5 hours long. I hope it gets a little more interesting than this. And it does in fact get more interesting when they encounter a Michael Keaton Batman. The Batman from the 1980s that I know I loved, and I was around for Adam West's Batman, but Adam West was, he was so campy and corny and everything. It was cool to me as a serious comic books fan, folks. When Michael Keaton came in there with Tim Burton, and in fact it gives you the Tim Burton, the music from the original the Michael Keaton Tim Burton Batman movies. Once you hear that music, and Michael Keaton, much older, but once he dons that Batman costume, he's Batman. I'm Batman. He even repeats some of his lines from the original movies. You've seen it in the previews. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. But nobody can say it like Michael Keaton can. And, and the CGI, the effects and everything, they're kind of cool when you see Michael Keaton as Batman. Excuse me. When you see him doing stuff that you didn't see him do at the time during the Tim Burton movies, because they didn't have that special effects ability at that time, but now they do. The only thing I could say about the CGI, the CGI was up and down, up and down, up and down throughout the movie. So some of it was really good, and some of it was like they didn't quite finish it, or maybe they tried to rush through this movie to get it done. It was up and down. I mean, as soon as you saw it, you recognized it. You weren't convinced totally, so, well, that's Batman, or whatever. You said that's CGI of Batman. Okay. And then they bring in Supergirl, who's a charismatic figure in this. And then it gets crazier. It gets crazier and crazier and crazier until he's back in the time of Man of Steel, and you see General Zod, and things are starting to happen all over again. Things are the Henry Cavill Superman villain, but you don't see Superman. You don't see Henry Cavill. I later found out that he was originally supposed to be in it, but due to several rewrites and certain things that happened, they decided to take him out and put in Kara, Supergirl, instead. Like I say, and she's great in this movie. The Flash, he's pretty cool. I mean, his special effects and everything, he's confused, he's crazy, but special effects are good. Michael Keaton steals the show, and it speeds towards an exciting ending. And you have two Flashes. Once Barry Allen from our Earth regains his ability, his super speed ability, then you have two Flashes. You have the younger, brash, and immature version of the Flash, and the newer Flash. You got Supergirl, and you got Michael Keaton as Batman. Again, stealing the show right up to the end. I mean, he really makes the movie. It's exciting. I'll go see it just for Michael Keaton. It's the nostalgia angle, and plus he's a good actor. He's a great actor, and he does a great job. You believe he's Batman. And towards the end, and there's kind of a shock, surprise ending in a way. Don't stay to the end of the credits, because the end of the credits is the scene at the end is disappointing. It's pointless. It's stupid. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't open anything up to make the future of the DC or DCEU universe. It doesn't make it any more interesting. It's just a throwaway. It's like, but I stayed in the theater, and everybody, it was like the second night. This thing had just come out the day before. And I stayed in the theater, and at the end, everybody, a bunch of us clapped. I didn't clap, but a lot of other people clapped. And I guess that shows that, well, they thought it was pretty good. They enjoyed it. I'd give it an 8 or an 8.5 on a scale of 10. It wasn't perfect. It was cool. It had a lot of good stuff in it. Not perfect. Better than Justice League. Might not be better than the Snyder Cut. If you haven't seen the Snyder Cut, well, you can order that online. I have it. It's right over there, but I'm not going to show it to you right now. I'd get in copyright trouble for one thing, but worth seeing. It's worth seeing. Don't expect perfection, but do expect to be entertained, and check it out. For Michael Keaton as Batman, makes it totally worth it. Thank you for your support. Thanks for supporting and encouraging small press comic book creators. That's what we try to do. And I'll see you in the next video, okay? Adios.